there guys, the PC guy here, and as per usual we have some hardware news related to the upcoming Threadripper and 3950X that should be coming up in a couple of months. We also have a few rumors slash almost confirmed information about the i9-9900KS that is also going to be coming out in a little bit. So first of all, let's get the hardware news out of the way and then discuss whatever else there is to discuss after that. An Australian online retailer, Moave, apologies if I'm pronouncing it wrong, has posted a listing of the 99KS that has since been removed, so I could not find it here anymore. But it has posted a listing for the 99KS at around $600, well, Australian dollars. According to PC Part Picker, the cheapest price right now for a 9900K is $475, which it would mean that the KS version would have a $75 premium for the simple pre-overclock that is applied on it. Now, adjusting the Australian currency to US dollars and removing the tax value, because in the US usually the tax is not added on the displayed price, that would mean that the 9900KS would be going to market at around the $500 to $550 mark. Now, the 9900KS does overclock out of the box to 5 GHz all cores. However, that is nothing that pretty much all 9900Ks and 9700Ks couldn't do with just a little bit of tweaking and overclocking. So you are going to be paying quite a bit of a price premium to get that performance right out of the box without just tweaking a few numbers on the BIOS. Really, it's not that difficult. So it seems quite a price premium for that, especially in the face of the onslaught that Intel is being a victim of at the hands of AMD with their Ryzen 3000 series. According to PC Part Picker, the cheapest price right now for a 9900K is $475, which it would mean that the KS version would have a $75 premium for the simple pre-overclock that is applied on it. It remains to be seen, however, if the KS version simply has an overclock applied to just a random K chip, or if it actually has a better binning process behind it, which might mean that those chips will overclock higher than the majority of 9900Ks, but that's something that only testing will be able to tell. I won't be able to from that testing, but I'm sure there's going to be reviews out there. There are also some rumors floating around that Intel's next-gen CPU architecture will be significantly bigger than Sony Cove. It's an article on PC Games, but there is a lot of lack of actual facts and information, so it could just all be hot air, and obviously we'll have to wait and see what comes out of there. But it's not like they are giving us a lot of specifics to work with, unlike the things that we are hearing from AMD for the future. Case in point, AMD's plans for the future seem to be actually pretty exciting if these rumors are actually true. Keep in mind they are rumors only, so there's no confirmation, but it is said that their future architectures, possibly already Zen 3, will be feature 4-way SMT or SMT4. If you're not familiar with SMT, it's basically the same as Intel's hyperthreading, which makes a core have two threads. So, like when you have an 8-core, 16 threads processor like the 9900K, that's hyperthreading. Intel's variant of that is called SMT or simultaneous multithreading. It is the same story. If you have a 6-core 12 thread, that's SMT for you. So the change here is that on Zen 3 it is said that AMD will start supporting 4-way SMT. So instead of doubling the core count in the manner of threads, you'll have 4 times as threads as you have cores. So if you would have, for example, a 10-core CPU, you would have 40 threads. Now, this is perhaps not super interesting at this moment for most home users like us, for gamers or just regular users. But for server situations, it is very important because, well, the more threads, the better in that particular use case. So this will definitely put the AMD even further ahead on the server market. On the home market, it is also obviously good news because the more performance, the better. And if it's free performance, obviously, then why not? Better have 4 times the threads and 2 times the threads as long as it doesn't affect the single thread performance in any significant way. Truth be told, a thread is not effective as a core. You get maybe half of the performance of a real core in the best case scenario with a thread, but it is always extra. You get that on top of the actual core performance. So obviously that's a very big positive. Speaking of server situations, a report has emerged, again, very unclear report, but it states that AMD's server market share is bound to be tenfold in the space of 5 to 10 years, mostly because of deals that have recently been struck with the new EPIC architecture that will be coming in place within the next several years. Because while these things take time to implement, and a company that buys server hardware does not buy it for today, it buys it in deals, in bulk deals for a certain amount of time in the future, so it will take time to actually see this. But it is definitely good news for AMD in the market share of server use cases. In the more domestic side of things, the 3900 has been spotted in a few documents regarding AMD. So it's a non-X version of the 3900X. It will feature the same 12 cores, 24 threads. However, the clocks have gone down to 3.1 and 4.2 gigahertz base and boost respectively, which is a bit slower than the actual 3900X. Now these have been made like this to facilitate dropping the TDP down from 105 to 65 watts, so you won't need as crazy of a cooler for it supposedly. However, keep in mind TDP is an indicator. It's a relatively accurate indicator, but this is an indicator nonetheless, not an actual measure of the wattage that your CPU is going to consume. But in any case, this seems to be kind of a bit of a cut down version of 3900. It will probably most definitely be cheaper, and it will contain the same 12 cores, 24 threads, so it will definitely be advantageous to people that want access to those cores and thread counts without necessarily requiring the bigger clock speeds that you can find on the X version, and obviously at a reduced price most likely. And while we're in rumor land, there is some rumors floating around that on October 22nd, Nvidia will launch the 1650 Ti and possibly also the 1660 Super. Now, I've said my piece on these two cards. I think they are oversaturating the lower price points of the market. I think the difference between each card is going to be so small that it's just going to lead to confusion amongst people that are not really sure what they should buy, and it's going to make it very difficult for reviewers and people that try to help people choose their hardware, like, well, yeah, builders. Builders is the word I'm looking for. It's going to make it very difficult for builders to actually justify a certain choice in that price point, because you're going to get to the 1650 and, well, for another $20, I could get an extra 5% performance, so get the Ti. But then you look at the Ti, and for another $20, you could get another 5% performance, and oh yeah, you should get that one. And it's an unending ladder of like $20, $20, $20 or something for just small increments of performance. And by the time you look at it, you started at 1650 and you're all the way at the 1660 Ti, and that is already like a 100-ish, 100 something difference in price. And you did get a price increase, but where do you stop on that ladder when advising hardware? As you know, unless it's a fixed budget, obviously. But yeah, it does make the choices a bit more tricky, and it oversaturates that price point right there. Obviously, this is a response for AMD's upcoming Navi 12 and 14 GPUs that we do not have a fixed launch date or price yet. So keep tuned for that. But obviously, in response to that, however, it does seem like they're really, really oversaturating it. Researchers at the University of Los Angeles in California have released a research paper where they state that they think that you could get pretty massive increases in the computational power by just eliminating the necessity for a motherboard. They say that, well, the connection between components in the computer in a motherboard is often a bottleneck on itself, and you could achieve a lot better results by the use of silicon interconnects between the different components. Now, this is definitely a major revolution in the PC market if this were actually to come to pass. Motherboards have been a staple since decades ago as far as connecting different pieces of your PC together. Obviously, if it were to happen, it's still far in the future. There is obviously still a lot of research and development to be made, and obviously the transition would also probably not be smooth. But if this were to be true, then the leap in computational power and the general performance of your standard regular old PC would definitely take a giant leap forward. So let's keep tuned for this. I am kind of curious to see how this will pan out, if there will be some further developments, or if it's going to be one of those researches that just they pop up, then nothing is ever done with it, and you just never hear from it again. So hopefully that's not the case, and we'll see what comes out of it. Oh yeah, and a couple of pieces of hardware news that I totally forgot, but another rumor is floating around for AMD's side. That is that the RX 5300 and 5500 might be arriving also still in October, as well as the B550 motherboards. So that would be a cheaper option to the X570, probably not probably without PCIe 4, but with another other of the improvements of the current generation of motherboards, so kind of in between the X470 and the X570 generation of motherboards and chipsets. So curious to how they are priced and curious to what exactly they will bring to the table, because it might just well be that you're better off getting an X470 than the B550, depending on what exactly changes in those motherboards. We'll have to wait for the full specification list to analyze that. And while those GPUs that I just mentioned, 53 and 5500, are most likely the Navi 12 and 14 that we've been hearing so much about, and that are probably going to be competing in the same range as the 1650 Super and 1660 Ti. No, 1650 Ti, 1660 Super from Nvidia that I just mentioned earlier. It's just way too much numbers. What is probably one of the more exciting uses of the Tensor cores on the new RTX cards yet, Nvidia has announced a broadcast engine which is supposed to really help live streamers, for example. Now this is AI supported, which is why it runs on the Tensor cores, because the Tensor cores are the AI-based part of the RTX cards, and it will bring a few very interesting features if you like to stream or record videos with, well, a bit more editing and interesting background. One of these is the green screen feature, which means that basically, you know how a green screen works. You have a little green screen behind you and your background, you can edit your background to be whatever else you want it to be. This would let you do that without actually buying a green screen. Your graphics card would just, identify your body, identify the background, and remove the background from the video with the use of the tensor cores and the AI modules that the software would be using. So that is definitely very interesting, because I have sometimes wanted to like prep up my videos a little bit more, do a little bit of green screen things, but obviously the investment of getting the proper, materials for that is also not nothing. So I ended up not really doing it so far, but if this is true, then when I do end up upgrading my GPU, it might be an RTX card. If this is actually a feature that works well, it might tip me over to buy Nvidia in place of AMD when that time comes. That's definitely a big plus on the RTX cards if this comes to pass. The other feature included is RTX AR, which basically it checks your eyes, your mouth, how they move, that sort of thing. It tracks them, and it imports it to an animated 3D model. So you could have a little doll, and you could talk and move your eyes, move your face, and it would mimic your movements and apply them to that 3D model, so that you could do 3D animations like that. It's kind of similar to motion capturing that they use for a lot of movies, when you see those actors with their weird suits, all with sensors all over the place. That's how they capture the motions for creatures like Gollum in Lord of the Rings, that sort of thing. That's how they do it, and this is kind of the basic version of that in a home version, but powered by the same hardware that you already own. So it's a free feature, and if it actually works somewhat good, then it's actually also a very big plus for content creators and could lead to a lot of avenues for home users or YouTube creators, that sort of thing, to actually do original things with a different type of animation and a different type of content that they otherwise would not be able to massive entry costs of buying the equipment necessary for that. Obviously, we still need to see exactly how good that will perform. Is the green screen thing clunky? Does it lift chunks of the background without being removed? Is the animation any good on the AR module? Obviously, all needs testing and checking and all that. You will need an RTX card, because if it runs on the tensor cores, if your card does not have tensor cores, then obviously it won't work. So that's the downside. And obviously, if you have an AMD card, well, you're kind of out of luck. But anyway, this has been it for the news in tech and gaming for the week. Actually, there is one more piece of gaming. I read a report about the WoW Classic subscriptions, and apparently the Warcraft subscriptions have tripled with the launch of WoW Classic. So it is safe to extrapolate that there have been twice as many people coming to play Classic as there were playing Retail, not to count even people that were playing Retail and took a break to go play Classic. So it's safe to say that WoW Classic is a massive success. Now, the exact numbers are not known, but it is estimated that there were, WoW Retail had around the 2 million-ish, maybe slightly less at this point, subscribers. So it's safe to say that there's at least 4 to 5 million people that went to play WoW Classic, which is pretty crazy for such an old game. It's been 15 years now, and the game apparently still draws a lot of interest. If those numbers will hold is a different story because of the system that Classic has. That's it. You get a few more patches of the retail content of Classic, but you're not going to get new original content there because, well, then it wouldn't be Classic anymore. So it's kind of up in the air if the numbers will hold in the future or if people just get tired of it after a while. But it's definitely interesting to see the enormous success that the game has had, even though it is well, a 15-year-old piece there. Now, this is the real end of the episode for this week. Hope you guys have enjoyed it and had some useful information and news that you had learned about. Consider subscribing, liking, and leaving a comment if you have enjoyed the content. We're always open to suggestions of what content you guys want to check, and we always welcome more people checking out the videos. It helps us grow and it helps us in the future maybe do better and higher quality content for you guys that you would enjoy even more. Otherwise, keep checking. Maybe I'll have something that's interesting to you. This has been Ethic PC Guy. Have fun, and I'll see you next time.